students, welcome to Byju's. This is 9th and 10th channel of it, and you all are achievers, and I am your teacher Ankita. In today's class, we'll be discussing about the plant tissue, or I would say that we'll be mastering the plant tissue in one shot. We know that this is really very important from the exam point of view, so we'll be looking into the chapter. Right, of course, this particular topic, we will be discussing about the important keywords, important questions, and how you can write the answer in the examination. Right, so this is really very, very important. Before we start our discussion, I would request you to have your notebook and your pen so that you can note down all the important points that we'll be discussing. And on that note, let's get started. But just 1 minute, one more important thing that I need to tell you. If you're watching this video for a very first time, or if you're new to our channel, take a moment and hit on the subscribe button. To actually help us in growing our family. Apart from that, it will be great for you so that you can get the quality education. And with that, let's get started. We're talking about tissues. Now, what are tissues? Now, tissues are nothing but a group of cells, right? Which have a similar shape and function, and they act together to perform a very specific function, and we call them as the tissues. So over here, we have 1 marks definition for the tissues. It's really very important. So of course, you can quickly take a screenshot of it. When we talk about the tissues, right? We have divided them into 2 broad categories. We have plant tissues and the animal tissue. In plant tissues, we have meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. And in animals, we have the epithelial, connective tissue, muscular and the nervous tissue. In today's class, we will be discussing about the plant tissue. So let's focus on that. Now, when we talk about the plant tissue, as we have just discussed, we can broadly divide them in the 2 different categories. Meristematic tissue and the permanent tissue. First, we'll be focusing on the meristematic tissue. Let's get started with it. So again, this is a really very important information we have over here. You can take the screenshot of the slides that we have, right? Basically, these can act as your notes so that you can quickly revise during your examination. We have all the important information which is needed. Over here we go. Now, meristematic tissues are really very special type of tissues, right? They keep on dividing. That's why we call them as the dividing tissues of the plant also. Apart from that, they are responsible for the growth of a plant in a specific region. Very, very important point about the meristematic tissues. Then when we talk about the important characteristic features, they are active. They keep on dividing cells. They have dense cytoplasm. They have a prominent nucleus, thin cell wall, and they lack the vacuole. These are the important characteristic features of these meristematic tissue. Now let's move ahead and let's talk about the different types of meristematic tissues we have. We have apical, lateral, and the intracalary. Let's quickly discuss about each one of these individually. The first one we are discussing is the apical meristem. Now, when we talk about the location of it, they are present in the shoot and the root apex at the tip of the shoot. Right, if the plant is growing in this particular direction, they will be there at the tip of the plant so that they can grow actually in the horizontal direction, moving towards the up. And of course, in the roots also, they are present at the tip of it. Then the important function of that, they actually help in the extension of the shoots and the roots. That's a really very important function of them. Then we have the lateral meristem. Now they're present in the lateral, in the stems and the roots, right? And they actually help in increasing the grit of the plant in this particular direction, right over here horizontally. They actually help in increasing the grit. That's really very important over here. So that's very important thing for us to remember when we're discussing about the tissues is that we should remember their location as well as their function. So that's done. Moving to the third type, we have the intercalary meristematic, right? The location, of course, present in the nodes and the internodes. So over here we have the nodes, right? Over here we have, right? And of course, from here we'll see the growth of the new branches, new leaves altogether. So they are present there. And of course, the important function of them is to help in the vertical elongation of the plant. So over here what we have is a very quick summary of the meristematic tissue. And in the examination, this comes for 3 marks. Now, what the question can be, describe about the meristematic tissue or write the important types of meristematic tissues along with their function. So here you have the answer. So I hope that you have noted this down, right? If you do this question, you will be the champion in the examination, right? Because now you are kind of, you're kind of aware about each and everything about this particular question. Talking about the champions, right? I have a very interesting information for you. We have Byju's scholarship test. Now, this particular examination will give you a chance to meet the champions, right, of our Indian cricket team. Yes, so we know that T20 Men's World Cup is there in Australia. And if you participate in Byju's scholarship test, you could get a chance to go to Australia and watch the World Cup live. So interesting, right? What you have to do, you just have to register yourself. There's a test which is absolutely free. You can write this test, and of course you could win a chance. So that's really very amazing. Apart from that, you will get a chance to go to Australia. There are other rewards also. So what are you waiting for, right? There's a link in the description box below, so you can click on that link, and of course you can register yourself for the examination. So keep that right in your notes. Now that we're done with this, moving back to our learning. So meristematic tissues is done, and now we will be discussing about the permanent tissue. Now I'm sure you are kind of aware about what is the meaning of permanent, right? Now the permanent tissue are these are the ones that will not be dividing. No dividing, we can say, right? They will not be dividing. This is important. No dividing, right? And the meristematic tissue will undergo the differentiation, and then only we'll have the permanent tissue. So meristematic tissues are there, right? They will be differentiating. They'll be taking up a very specific functions. And once they take up that specific functions to perform, they will be losing their ability to divide, and then only we'll have the permanent tissue. That's we are clear, right? Differentiation is again a very important 1 marks question. So please make a note of it. So now we have the permanent tissue. Now the permanent tissue again can be broadly divided into 2 different types. We have simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. In simple permanent tissue, we'll have similar types of cells. This is important. We'll have the similar types of cells. In that we have 3 types. We have parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. In complex permanent tissue, we will have different types of cells. Different types of cells will be coming together, and they will be forming the complex permanent tissue. In that we have 2 categories, or we can say 2 types. We have xylem and we have phloem. Now that we are clear with this, let's quickly discuss about the simple permanent tissue. In that, for the first one we are discussing is the parenchyma. The important characteristic features of the parenchyma are that they are oval, or they could be round also. They have a very thin cell wall. Very thin cell wall, right? They have the small but dense nucleus. This is important. Then, of course, they have a living protoplasm, right? They have living protoplasm. Protoplasm will have the living component which includes the nucleus and the cytoplasm. And of course, they have a lot of large intracellular spaces. So this is really very important in terms of the parenchyma. So this is very important. That's the important characteristic features. Now let's talk about the location. Now they are present throughout the plant. So everywhere in different parts of the plant, we will find the parenchyma. Now the function, they perform the function and they provide the structural support. That's a very important function. And they plays a very important role in the storage of the materials. So what we have over here is the quick summary of the parenchyma. So quickly take a screenshot of it. Moving ahead, we'll be discussing about 2 types. We have chlorenchyma and we have arenchyma. So let's talk about the chlorenchyma first. I'm sure there's a lot of similarities with the word chlorophyll, right? Now let's talk about the characteristic features of them. They could be oval or round shape with the very thin cell wall. They have a dense but small nucleus, very similar to the parenchyma, right? They have a dense protoplasm. And of course, they have a good amount of chloroplast. We know that chloroplast is called as the kitchen of the cell, and chloroplasts have chlorophyll that actually help the plants to perform the photosynthesis. That's why the name chlorenchyma. So that's a very important note. Then let's talk about the arenchyma. As the word air is there, it is related to something with the floating of it. When we talk about the characteristic features, they are oval, round shape, have a similar very thin cell wall, dense but small nucleus. They contain large air cavity. And because there's a lot of large air cavity, They actually help the plants to float, especially the water plants like water lily, right? They actually can easily float on the water. And of course, we have the parenchyma tissue over there. So this is really very important. Again, what is the difference between these two? That could be a 2 marks question that can be asked in the examination. So please keep a note of this. Moving ahead to the next simple permanent tissue, what we have the collenchyma. Now let's quickly discuss about the characteristic features of them. They are long and the living cells, this is really important, they are a little bit longer, right? And of course, they are the living cells. They have a thick wall, thick cell wall, right? They have irregular thickening at the walls, we can see. At the corners, they have a little bit of thickening, right? They have less intercellular spaces, and of course, they have large intercellular space over here. So, of course, when we talk about it, now we will not be considering this point. They have very less intercellular spaces. This is really, really very important over here, as we can see. Now, the location, they're usually found in the climbers, right? Now, what are climbers over here? We have an example. Those plants that climb, that take a support of any structure, and of course, they climb. They're found over there, and they are really very special in providing the flexibility to the plants. I'm sure you must have seen, right, during the storm, you must have seen the plants moving like this. They'll just not fly away, right? So that's really very important. Collenchyma gives the flexibility to the plants, and of course, it provides the mechanical support also. Specifically, if you're talking about, it provides the flexibility to the tendril. This is important. You could quickly note this down. So that's about the collenchyma. So parenchyma and collenchyma both are living tissues. Now, when I said that they both are living tissues, do we have something kind of dead tissue also? Let's find out, right? The next we have in the simple permanent tissue, we have the sclerenchyma. Now, the characteristic features of them are that they are long and narrow dead cells. Yes, the tissues can be dead also. So, in simple permanent tissue, we have two. We have parenchyma and collenchyma, which are living tissue. Sclerenchyma on the other side is a dead cells, right? They have basically the dead cells. They are long and narrow and the dead cells. Now, they have a very thick covering of a chemical, right? Of course, that they have the lignin. This is important, right? So, their walls are being covered with the lignin, and that's why we call them as thick lignified cell walls. This is very, very important, or a very important characteristic feature of the sclerenchyma. And they have a very narrow lumen. The location when we talk about, they're present in the hard coat of the seeds, right? I'm sure you must have seen the seeds, right? Of course, we have the sclerenchyma over there. Then, of course, they're present in the vascular bundles also. So, of course, when we talk about the vascular bundles, we'll be quickly discussing in a minute. So, it's present there also. The function comes that provides the mechanical strength, right? They make the seed coat hard and, of course, give the woody appearance. This is really important. When we talk about the seeds, right, when we talk about the walnut covering, the coconut husk, right, the covering of the coconut, that's made of the sclerenchyma, right? So you can find more examples of it and you can write in the comment section below. When we talk about the sclerenchyma, there are two different types. We have the fibers and we have the sclerides. So, of course, fibers, of course, we have it in the coconut husk, right? And, of course, we have in the vascular bundles also. And we have sclerides. The sclerides are different types, right? And, of course, the one example that I could now think of is they're present in the guava fruit, right? So, you can do a little bit more research on that and you'll be so fascinated with this interesting and super amazing information. So, with that, we are kind of done with the simple permanent tissue. It has three types, parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma, and we are done with it. Now, what are we moving ahead to the next important topic, that is protective tissue. Now, this particular topic is a little bit confusing, right? So, I would request you to focus really, right, very closely, and we'll be focusing on, we'll be learning this. So, we have protective tissue, and it has three broad categories. We have leaf epidermis, root epidermis, and the cork. So, let's quickly discuss about the leaf epidermis. So, leaf epidermis, when we talk about, what is the function? Of course, they're the outermost layer. Over here, we can see, right? So, they're present on the epidermis, right? Of course, on the leaves, they have a very thin layer that is on top of it. To actually make sure it protects the leaves, right? Of course, we'll be looking into the functions of it. So, of course, it's the outermost layer, prevent the water loss, prevent the mechanical damage, and, of course, prevent the invasion of the parasites. And, of course, it have the stromatas. Now, once these stomata are present over here, they actually help in the exchange of the gases, right? And of course, it actually help in the transpiration process also. Then when we talk about the stomata over here, right, over here from here to here, they actually help in the gaseous exchange and they regulate the water loss also. So there are two important points about the protective tissue, especially the leaf epidermis over here, the functions where it is present over here, and then of course about the stomata. So please take a note of it. On this also we have a very waxy coating layer which is called as a cuticle. So you can note that also. Moving ahead to the root epidermis. Now of course when we talk about the roots, they also have the epidermis and basically they also contain these small hair, right, root hairs, these very thin root hairs. Now they actually help in increasing the surface area for the water absorption. Now the important role of these root hairs is to help in the absorption of the water from the soil, right? And when they absorb, the water will be moving to the different parts. So this is really very important. Over here we have the epidermis. Again, it provides as it is a protective tissue, it is the outermost layer and it provides the protection to the plants, right? The other tissues and the other cells that we have inside apart from that. So that's the role of the root epidermis. Moving to the third type, which is kind of very confusing, and again a 2 marks question comes on this particular topic, is the cork cells. Now they are found in the woody stem and the old plants, right? Old plants. Now, of course, they are made up of the protective tissue. They reduce the water loss and prevents the mechanical injury. So what happens? In the inside, we have the newer tissues, right? And of course, they get good amount of water and food. But as they keep on growing, right, what happens? They are being pushed away from the center and they move to the outside. And as they move outside, what happens? Of course, they'll not be getting enough water and the food. And eventually, these cells will become dead. And of course, they form the very rough and tough covering. So over here, this is important. Apart from that, a very important 1 marks question that we have over here is the chemical. That, of course, is the fibrin. Right? And this basically make the cork cells impervious to water and gas. Basically, there will be no loss of water. Again, a very important point. Please take a note of this. So with this, we are kind of done with the protective tissues also. Now we'll be moving ahead to the complex permanent tissue. But before that, I want you to try this Byju's mini learning program that we have. Now with this particular program, what you can do, you can actually explore the Byju's classes. There are 2 teacher advantage. You can pick the timing of your own classes. What you have to do, you just need to use the code YT first. This Byju's mini learning program is now absolutely free. You need to use the code YT first and the first 500 users can actually avail this program for free. So don't wait. After this class, quickly use the code YT first and avail this an amazing, and you can actually explore these classes. These are really very amazing classes that you can do, check them out after the class. Not now, but after the class for sure. Now let's move ahead to the last permanent tissue, right? Which permanent tissue? The complex permanent tissue we have. Now the complex permanent tissue will have different types of cells coming together and they'll be forming a tissue. So we have tissues that are made up of more than one type of cells are called as a complex permanent tissue, and of course they are the conducting tissues of the plant. We have 2. We have phloem and the xylem. Let's talk about each one of them. We are starting with the xylem. The xylem is a very special conducting tissue, right? And it is really very special because it actually helps in carrying the water and minerals, right? From the roots to the different parts of the plant. The flow in the xylem is only in one particular direction. That is from the bottom to the top. We call it as a unidirectional. This is important. Please note this down. Unidirectional, right? Over here, like this you can write. Now, let's talk about the different components of it. The first component we have is a trachea, right? They have a very large dead cells over here. We can see the end of the placement of the cells provide the continuous channel. Of course, through these, of course, there's a continuous channel that we have. And of course, these walls are lignified and provide the mechanical support. Very interesting, right? Then the next component we have is a vessel. Water will be flowing through these, right? And of course, this is important. So, of course, water and minerals will flow through these. Cells are placed end to end. They also have a lignified cell walls, right? And of course, they make sure to have the proper flow. Then we have parenchyma. Now, as the parenchyma is there, it will be storing the starch in the fat, right? And it assists for the small transportation distance. Like if there's a small distance, it might help in the transportation. And in the end, we have the fiber. Remember the fiber from the sclerenchyma? Here we have. Now, they're involved in the water transport and they are the one that provides the mechanical support. So, the four important components of xylem are tracheids, vessels, parenchyma and the fiber. Out of these four, three are dead. Yes, tracheids, vessel and fibers are dead, whereas only parenchyma is living. So, this is a very important information. This is living, right? Rest all are dead. Now, let's talk about the phloem. Here we have. Now, phloem plays a very important role in the transport of food. So, they are the one that actually help in the transport of food or the translocation of food. And the special thing about phloem is that we will see that the molecules will move in both the direction from top to bottom and from bottom to the top. And that's why in phloem we'll see the bidirectional flow. This is important, right? In that we will see the bidirectional flow. Now, this is a very important information about it. Now, let's talk about the phloem components. Here we have, first we'll talk about the sieve tubes. Now, they are the elongated cells, right? They are placed end to end and of course, they make a tubular structure we can see over here. Now, they have these sieves in between through which the molecules will move and they are the one that actually help in the transportation of sugar and the nutrient. Then we have the companion cells which is very next to the sieve tubes. They are closely associated with the sieve tubes and they control the activities also of the sieve tubes. Then we have parenchyma, as of course it plays a very important role in the storage of the food like starch. And of course we have the fibers that provide the mechanical support. Now, over here in the phloem, we have sieve tubes, companion cells and parenchyma. These three are living, whereas fiber is non-living. Kind of opposite to the xylem, right? So we have discussed about the xylem and of course about the phloem. With that, I think we can conclude our plant tissue. Both the xylem and the phloem are really very important and in the examination a question can come on the difference between the xylem and the phloem. So please take a note of it. With this, I would say we are at the end and before we end our session, I would request you to join our Telegram group if you haven't joined our group already. Now we have the Telegram community where of course we post the session PDFs, session notes, session updates, homework question and so much more. So if you haven't joined this amazing community of us, you can click in the link which is in the description box below and you can be a part of a family too. With that, I would end my session. You know that we've got you covered and don't forget to hit the like button for the video, share with your friends and subscribe to this amazing channel. On to that note, I'll say bye-bye. Take care of yourself and keep on learning with Byju's.